All right, Kevin, we're live now. Uh, so, just want to start. This is the second episode, Road to East Miami, this incredible event that we're putting together for November 26th, November 30th. And in today's episode, we have Kevin from Nifty Apes. It's actually interesting conversation because we've met at IRL event in Denver. So I'm going to be talking about importance of IRL events today, and because Miami is IRL event for hackers to come all over from United States and the world. So I think that's going to be a very interesting conversation from this perspective as well. So, Kevin, welcome. If you can tell a few words about yourself, and we'll just go through questions. And I think we have things to talk about.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me on, Andre. Really happy to be here. Stoked to talk about IRL events and hackathons. It's really helped my career a lot, getting to do this for the last 5 years. So I joined the space back in 2017, and my first opportunity was through a hackathon. It got me a job out at the Boston Consulting Group, actually. So I got to work with the World Wildlife Fund and the De Beers Group, building proof of concepts and MVPs. I got to start the e-security community via a grant from the Ethereum Community Fund. I had the opportunity to work with Gitcoin and build Gitcoin grants at V0. I was a co-founder at a group called Charge, where we were doing credit cards on the blockchain. And after a little bit of time off, I got to build with the Bill Guild and Austin Griffith, work a lot with Scaffold ETH, and now I've built Nifty Apes. We're launching here in a couple of weeks. It's a leverage for your NFT portfolio company. So really fast background on me. Love to give more detail if that makes sense. And let's get going.
Yeah, let's talk about like Web3 hackathons, like East Miami that we're putting together. Like these places to learn, to make friends, to grow your skills. Can you kind of elaborate on that? Like what's your perspective on that in general? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, each event is different, but they typically will have some talks, right? Places to learn, kind of more experienced people to learn from. It's a great place to meet mentors and make friends. So listening to the talks, kind of learning what exists in the ecosystem and what's available for me to dig into. And, it's a great way to find something that really inspires you and sparks your interest, and you can kind of double click down and learn more. It's also like a great way to make friends and to learn from other people. Definitely one of the most important things I did on my path was go to these events. I kind of, just did anything I could to go to like, DevCon in Cancun and go to ETH Berlin in 2018. Just being there, I was able to make friends with people who have gone on to do awesome things. And there's kind of a cohort and a family that forms where we're all learning, growing, succeeding together. And that's really what the community is, what your network, and kind of a great way to build a reputation by learning, building cool stuff, and making friends together as kind of a cohort. That's what I think these IRL events are really about.
So what would be as the hacker for you, like personally, meeting like great mentors, meeting the people, getting the right frameworks? What do you think the importance of different things for you in the order of priority? Like what you would suggest for something newer who doesn't really have a lot of skills as the hacker to look for?
Yeah. In order of importance, I'd say I've always done people first. I think people are the most important thing in life in general and in career, because if you make friends, you can learn from them. They can provide other opportunities in the future. And then getting to actually be able to, especially for as a dev, being technical and having the tools and the skills to actually execute is super important. And a tool chain like Scaffold ETH is super easy to pick up and build something that's really useful and interesting really quickly. So I'd say people and kind of these skills that can get you moving fast. And then you can kind of get into the talks and really double click into more specific topics, right? If you wanted to get into like ZK zero knowledge stuff, or you want to get really deep into DeFi and kind of the swap world, or you want to do NFTs and kind of a more cultural art background. Those are all kind of, once you have the skills to build something, and like you can meet more people in those certain directions and continue to develop that community.
Yeah, let's talk more about specifically Scaffold ETH, because all our educational programs, they pretty much based on Scaffold ETH. We work with Austin Griffith. We're pretty much getting his advice on we're getting his curriculum. We use this as our tool of option to like build a prototype. And can you kind of elaborate more on like these frameworks like Scaffold ETH and what they allow you to do as a new hacker? Because I think that's very important.
Yeah, totally. So I used Scaffold ETH for my original implementation of Nifty Apes. It was something I started hacking on while I was working with the Build Guild. And Scaffold ETH basically bundles a React JavaScript front end with hard hat, and it auto generates a front end like for whatever smart contract you might be working with. So it gives you a really flexible way to build a smart contract, build functionality that's kind of Web3 native. You can deploy it to a test chain or to mainnet. That gives you all the capability. But then it gives you a front end, or you can really easy interact with it and see what you're doing, right? Without having to, it gets you there like much faster. There's instead of having to go through and learn about, ethers and hard hat and all these other tools, the graph, it kind of bundles it all for you up front. And then once you can see how it all works and actually build something of value and deploy it to the chain, then you can, again, you can learn more about each of those particular tools. But it gets you going from zero to potentially production really quickly. And it teaches you a lot about the different kind of value props along the way. I mean, I think in the main Scaffold ETH repo, there's like 150 or 200 branches with different kind of value props and patterns that exist inside of Web3. And I know they've boiled that down into, I think, 8 or 10 kind of modules in the ETH dev speedrun. So it really doesn't take you very much to go from zero to kind of an ETH developer, where you can contribute to one of these hackathons.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll get back to this question. I wanted to ask, because a lot of people asking about how we can get hired, and many people looking for this first hire, especially for the beginners. So what's your experience with hackathons, the way to get hired and get noticed by those companies and protocols? Like what you've seen, and maybe some best practices that you can share.
Yeah, totally. So I'll speak from my experience first. I mean, my first job was coming out of a hackathon. Kevin Owaki from Gitcoin and I are still friends here in Boulder, Colorado, and we went out to a hackathon in LA. It was for the Boston Consulting Group, and we actually won it. We built something called You've Got ETH, where you could email ETH to any email address, and it was not secure. We were basically like emailing a private key to somebody, but it worked, and it was enough to win the hackathon. And it just demonstrated, one, I made friends with the people who were my future coworkers, and it demonstrated that I knew what I was doing, right? And so that was enough to get me that job offer. And that's really a main thing that companies do at these hackathons, right? They're trying to find good, talented people that they like working with. So going and building something that's interesting and making friends is a great way to do that. Back at East Denver in Eric, I built a liquid democracy implementation for a bounty that Aragon had out. I didn't end up winning that bounty, but I made friends with the whole Aragon team. And basically I get to connect with some of those people at all of these in real life conferences that I go to. So like DevCon is happening in Bogota in a couple of weeks. And I'm probably going to see those guys and probably going to hang out. We'll go have a drink. And that's really, it's a huge value add, right? Yeah, and I'd say like the bounties that you choose can be really important as well. So like it allows you to get into somebody's code base and contribute directly to that project. It shows you're knowledgeable of what they're building. You're able to extend that functionality That's really valuable to different companies and teams.
Okay. Yeah. Question about we run this free Solidity program that's called Grow Solidity as part of ETH Miami, and when our students go to employers, they usually most of the time they say no, we just hiring senior developers. So like, what would be your like idea, senior developer versus this junior developers, beginner developers that don't really have a chance or like very little chance? What other things they might do to like increase their chances to get this job placement?
Yeah. So like for Nifty Apes, we're looking for Solidity engineers. We just hired one, but basically our bar. So what we're looking for a senior Solidity engineer. That's basically you've gone through the entire development life cycle of a smart contract. So that's architecture, implementation, testing, audit, deployment, all the way, maintaining a live protocol, right? And that's really hard to find. There's not a lot of people who have actually done that. They're really in high demand. So it's how many pieces of those, how many of those things have you done potentially? The more of those things you can do and demonstrate that you have skills in, the more towards senior you become. But it's also where we know that that's really hard to find. And so one of the strategies we're taking is, hey, if you have experience in Web2 and you're just dipping your toes into Solidity and Web3, if you're a solid engineer, you're a solid engineer. It doesn't take you that much to learn Solidity. There's a little bit of a paradigm shift because you're programming on a blockchain and you're basically programming an adversarial game. But if you can get your head around that, it's not that different. So it's how many of those things can you do, right? Architecture, implementation, robust testing, audit, and then deployment, and really participating in things like Code Arena is also a great way. It's not so much a part of the hackathon because it's Code Arena or live kind of audit competitions. I think Sherlock is running them now as well. There's a couple different kind of players in that space, but it's a way that you can demonstrate your ability by you review other people's code. And if you can identify a bug or a vulnerability, you can report it and actually get paid out for doing so. Again, not as much of a in real life hackathon thing, but a great way to build up your skill set and like, hey, I've found this vulnerability in this smart contract and it added value to this team. That's a great way to demonstrate ability.
Mm-hmm. But when you, let's say, we have a lot of students from this free Solidity educational program that we run, and many of them, they just coming out of this education, and then what other things they can do to land this first job, more like a job than anything else? So like, do you have anything else, any other advice for them? Because they will be the ones who also will be joining hackathon, and maybe there is some connection between this hackathon, looking for the job, and getting hired at the hackathon.
Yeah, so I'd say building the team, right? So, well, one, some teams will actually go to these hackathons and send some of their developers as a way to recruit people, right? And so we've thought about doing this as well. It's like, hey, if we show up with our dev team, we want to build something on our protocol or on our front end app. Let's invite 2 to 4 additional engineers to help contribute. It's a way for us to meet them, make friends, and learn whether they're capable or not. And so looking for maybe there are teams that are going to be at ETH Miami who are doing that, or just starting your own team and meeting that small group that way. It's a great way to like, hey, I'm showing leadership. I'm showing how I know how to run a team, basically set out a plan and execute against it. Those are all skills that you would use as an engineer on a dev team. And then, it's, again, make friends, demonstrate ability, and hackathons are the perfect way to do that.
Okay. And if you, let's say, not looking to get hired, you're looking to, of course, start your own protocols, start a project at the hackathon. So what's your idea on the whole funding thing, and how best practices how we can or hackers can get their project funded, because I think that's pretty much what the hackathon is all about, like building the project, and the next step is of course looking for VC or for just money to launch it further.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, VCs, there's typically a lot of VCs at these kinds of events, right? They're looking for deals and companies that they can invest in. And if you're looking to start your own company, this is a great place to meet those kinds of people. And again, it's like, it's all the same. It's making friends. VCs are just people that want to, meet other good people and, and demonstrating ability, especially if you have a team that you want to start the company with, and you can build that project at the hackathon, or you can even build just a segment of that project at the hackathon, right? Like a lot of companies are much bigger than just building something at a hackathon, but it can be a larger idea. And hey, the hackathon we're building this aspect of our protocol or our DApp here. And then we're basically using the hackathon as a way to showcase ourselves and our vision for the company. And in doing so, you're making friends, demonstrating ability. And then if that friend happens to be a VC, there might be a conversation where you could raise money and grow the company from there.
Okay. And as far as VCs that come to the hackathon versus the ones that you need to look yourself, so what would be like difference here, and maybe some suggestions or like tips and tricks of if it's outside of the hackathon, now you build product and then you have to go out there, like what do you think about that?
So the question is like, hey, there's a VC at the hackathon versus a VC not at the hackathon.
Yes.
How does that conversation differ?
Right. Versus you just have to go out on your own and just look for
Yeah.
this VC after everything is finished and done, and now you have your prototype and you want to raise money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing is that it's in real life, right? The VC is there. It's somebody you can go up to and have a face-to-face conversation with. Unless you already have a deep network in the space, it's hard to have those conversations, right? It's hard to typically VCs. They basically VCs have a pile of money, and their team is trying to hand that money out, but guard it from everybody else. And so if you're just cold reaching out to VCs, it's much harder to have a conversation. They're more trying to protect that pile of money from you. Whereas if you're in real life and you're friends with them, they're like, hey, I trust this person. I know that they do good work. I can see how they're executing. I want to give them some money, right? So it's always in real life, making friends is the best way to go. It's harder to do it via a computer screen. It can be done, definitely, but it usually takes knowing a few other people who can make warm intros for you.
Cool. I guess the next question I had for you about Build Guild, we kind of touched this several times, but can you tell more about Guild Build and experience, and like the Austin Griffith, of course, experience, and what it gave you as far as the possibilities? Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that's where most of our people, either from East Miami community or from Grow Solidity, which is scaffold, is coming from, and I think they having the same experience and you once had, and it's interesting, like your take and maybe even like some words of wisdom for the newer guys.
Yeah, totally. So I'll start by saying this: I was part of the Build Guild about a year ago, so some things might have changed, but my experience was. Well, Austin and I were friends from back in the Gitcoin days. So we both worked on Gitcoin grants together. The burner wallet that's a part of Scaffold ETH. I was the first person that he sent a transaction to on the burner wallet, right? We were like in Prague at DevCon. And he like just got off the plane. We were like in this little cellar, like drinking beer. He's like, I just built this really cool thing on the airplane. Like, check it out. Pull out your phone. And so he sent me like $1 on XDAI back in the day. So I'll preface it with that, like Austin's a homie. But my experience was, I quit my last startup and I came back after about 6 months of taking off, and I was just wanted to build stuff. And so I started contributing to the Moonshot Collective, and got to chat with Austin. He's like, hey, I'm doing this Scaffold ETH thing. We wanna build a curriculum for people to learn the tools of the Ethereum ecosystem. And that's what Scaffold ETH and the ETH Dev Speedrun has become. He had just released ETH Dev Speedrun and encouraged me to go through it and give him feedback. And so I did. And after I went through the whole speed run, I was like, hey, you can be a part of the build guild, and then I'll stream you some ETH each month. And every time you submit work, then you can pull down a bit more of your funding from the build guild. So it's kind of like, hey, just essentially build cool stuff and contribute back to Scaffold ETH and the ecosystem, and I'll fund you as you learn along the way. And for me, that really gave me the space and time to, one, learn, get back my skills from, took 6 months off. And then it gave me the space to build Nifty Apes. Originally Nifty Apes started as, I'm going to build a degen casino. I'm going to take all of the value props from Web3, all of these branches on Scaffold ETH. I'm just going to put them all into the same front end. And then I'm going to put a pawn shop out front so you can get a loan against your NFT, go to the casino, spin the wheel, and come back and pay back your loan. And it's evolved from there, of course, but that's originally where the idea for Nifty Apes
So you're saying
started.
that you use the actual Scaffold ETH in building prototype for Nifty Apes, right? That's
right.
What
Exactly.
Exactly. How long, like something like just correlates with if it correlates with the hackathon, like usual hackathon, like if Miami hackathon is like 3-day hackathon, right? It's
Right.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, then we have demos and awards the following day on Wednesday. So it's 3 days. So what do you think as far as time frame, Scaffold ETH, and project like you've built? What people should be concerned or aware of building similar prototype like you did for Nifty Apes?
Yeah, I mean, what I built with Nifty Apes is definitely possible in that time frame. Maybe not for one person. It's a bit more complicated. They could have. I think it took me maybe a week to do my by myself. I was just working at home. But a team of 2 or 3 easily could do the initial implementation that I went and raised money on over the course of a hackathon. It's basically taking a simple smart contract that demonstrated the idea, and then slightly improved front end that had some simple navigation. And part of it at hackathons too, it's what you build and demonstrating that it works, but it's also having a little bit of a pitch deck and a presentation that tells the story. Here's the team, we're the founders, here's our experience, this is why you should trust us, this is what we built, this is the market we think that exists, this is why we built it, this is what we want to do with it next, right? Mm-hmm. Telling that story can be really good for the judges at the hackathon and any VCs who might be watching, right? They all want to hear that kind of story. So yeah, I mean, Scaffold ETH is amazing for rapid prototyping and proof of concept work. That's like really what it's for. It's for people to learn and get building really quickly.
And then let's talk about this raise that you've done for the company and how much maybe again connect this prototyping, building, then raise, kind of get us through this journey a little bit more so people see, maybe they will find some similarities or tactics they will apply to kind of repeat that route from hackathon maybe.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so for me, right, I've had a bit more experience in the ecosystem. I've been around for roughly 5 years or plus now. So I came back, I was just building, I built this proof of concept, and then I showed it to my buddy, and he was like, dude, stop building, don't be an engineer, you need to go be a CEO right now and raise money right now. So we had enough to demonstrate, this is the idea, this is what we want to do with it. And then my co-founder and I, I worked at Gitcoin, did ETH security, deep experience in Solidity, his deep experience on product and operations at some companies over at Consensus. And so the team, our background, our reputation, we both contributed to significant projects in the past. We were then able to take that proof of concept and say, hey, here's our team, here's our idea, this is what we've built. We need to raise X amount of money to get us 18 to 24 months to this next set of objectives, and the potential market for what we're building, leverage on your NFTs, which is anything from essentially margin trading all the way up to home equity line of credit style lending. It's going to be pretty massive in the future. Especially if we see NFTs continue to mature and there's more utility, right? If we start to see like houses and those kinds of assets represented as NFTs, then it becomes a huge market. And so that was kind of the story we told, and we got to use our previous experience as well as what we built with Scaffold ETH to do that. So coming from a hackathon depends on your background and your experience. The more experienced and the more of a network you have, the more likely you are to meet, those kind of high quality VCs.
Well, that's basically the same answer to all the questions, right? Like go IRL, meet people, build connections, and like you said, 5 years. Maybe if it's not 5 years, maybe if it's 1, 2, 3 event and 1 year, and now you have enough, right, to get started. So that's okay. Yeah, that's cool. Bounties. That's an important topic. What can you say about bounties? Selection of the bounties? Anything bounty related, hackathon related ideas, tips for our hackers who join us, not only in Miami but pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, bounties are a great way to dive into a particular topic. For me, I kind of shared, I built that implementation for Aragon back in 2018. It was because I really liked Aragon as a team and the idea of DAOs and governance. And so I just spent a whole weekend learning about DAOs and governance and what are the constraints around different voting mechanisms. And that's a great way to dive in and dig deep. Again, demonstrating ability, learning somebody's code base. I got to make friends with the Aragon team. So those are all great things. For me, it wasn't part of a hackathon, but the Gitcoin grants started as a bounty. Like I could go find the URL. It still exists for the Gitcoin grants bounty, where Kevin Awak is, hey, we want to build this kind of project. Right. These are the requirements. And it just happened to be that I was friends with Kevin, and he trusted me enough to give me that bounty. And ultimately I got to contribute to something that was really significant. And that's definitely happened at hackathons before. These projects, I think, Tornado Cash was just a hackathon project, and it's become a huge thing. That's raised a lot of different, questions in the space. So I think the bounties, it's really important. I think whatever inspires you, whatever sparks your curiosity and makes you want to build more, that's the kind of stuff you should go after.
Nice. Yeah, so I hear two major components here. One is it's IRL, and another one is just meeting people and using tools like Scaffold, which we use a lot, and that's what we teach. And most of the people, I'm not sure about most of the people, but I know many people who will be coming to ETH Miami IRL event this November. They will be using this tool, and the ones who don't use, I think that's from this conversation, the takeaways maybe some words of suggestion to just go explore the tool and build this prototype and get bounties and funding coming your way. Yeah, that's good. Good to hear, and I'm sure people who will be watching this recording, they will reinforce, maybe you will reinforce this message that we constantly tell in our community, new people who come in to learn Solidity, that why you should reinvent the wheel if it's out there. People try it, it's battle tested, just go and use what works. And that's, I think, the message. And to me, to just close on this episode is, I really, because we can talk, we can suggest, we can offer, but it doesn't really matter if you don't take an action. And our call to action is very simple. The ETH Miami 2022 event is November 26th to November 30th. It's IRL hackathon. We're getting the best people in the industry joining us. Austin Griffiths will be in person. We have Nether Debit. We have Kevin Awaki coming to Miami. We have all these Ethereum and Web3 leaders come and support you, offering advice, and just you can meet these people IRL talking about building networks and opportunities in Miami, and it's a lot of resources that they can from us to get it all, make it all happen for the community, for the Miami community. So whoever is considering should definitely be coming for these IRL experiences using these tools. And it's just ethmiami.net. Go click apply as the hacker. It's going to get you to the Gitcoin platform and work with Gitcoin team on this hackathon. And we'll all see each other there. And it's I'm sure it's going to be a great Miami experience for everyone who is considering coming, either like from United States, from the outside. Everyone is welcome. Just go apply, and I guess we'll see everyone in Miami. And Kevin, thanks a lot for your words of wisdom. Thanks for sharing your experience. We'll put this episode on YouTube channel, so it's I'm sure a lot of people will get at least one point from this conversation that they should go and apply, and probably we're gonna have another project or fundraise or anything in between.
Yeah.
Kevin, thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Andre. Thanks for having us. Yeah. Follow me at Captain Seagraves at Nifty Apes on Twitter. Thanks everybody. We appreciate it.
All right. Talk to him. Bye.
Cheers.